Hey, thanks for joining me in making my Harlequin 2-drop brick stitch earrings. I have here my earrings on a little bit of a backdrop here so you can see the color variation. So what makes these Harlequin is just the color pattern that I've chose. So you can see here I have the dark blue color on top and then the gold color on the bottom. And I switched it up for this bead over here, this earring over here, and I used the same exact technique. I just chose to swap those colors so that when they're on your ear, you have a little bit more interest and they are different from each other. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how to do this with a 2-drop brick stitch pattern. I'm going to start by picking up a stop bead, and I'm going to use the same bead that I'm going to use in my first triangle that I'm going to create. So I've got one of those beads on here, and I've just wrapped my thread around it once to create that stop bead. I'm going to pick up another bead, another one of my 11-ohs here, to make my first pair. I'm going to pick up another 2 11-ohs, and this is my second pair. And I'm going to pass through the stop bead and the bead after it. Those 2 beads together were my first pair, and just pull my thread through until I've got the first pair sitting next to the second pair. So they're going to create, if I hold it this direction, they're going to create little columns. I have my thread here coming out through the top of my first column, and I'm going to go down, make a little U-turn here, and go down through my second column and give a nice tight pull because we want to make sure that we're keeping everything nice and tight as we work. Pick up 2 more beads, and this is going to be my third column, and I'm going to go around here and approach from the top here, my second column, go down through, and then up. Again, I'm making like this little U-turn, and I'm going up through the third column, coming out the top. Give a little tug, and I'm going to continue this way. It's ladder stitch, essentially, until I have a total of 9 columns across. I now have 9 columns, or 9 sets of 2 beads from the top or the front to the back of my little ladder stitch here. And if you look at the top of the ladder stitch, it's a little bit dark because a little bit hard to see because my beads are dark here. But running from the hole of one bead to the hole of another, you'll see that thread that is coming out of one hole and passing into the hole of the other. That is called your bridge thread, and so that is what we are going to use in this next step. I'm going to start this step here with a brick stitch, and brick stitch will be what we use the rest of the way as we work on this side of the diamond. So typically with brick stitch, we're going to start by picking up 2 beads, but because each bead for us is going to be a set of 2, we're going to pick up 2 sets of 2. So I have 1 set of 2 and another set of 2. So I've got 4 beads on my needle. I'm going to skip the first bridge thread. I'm going to pass under that second bridge thread. So I'm passing through the bridge thread, or under that bridge thread, that is coming out between my second and my third bead in from the end. So I'm passing under that bridge thread, and as you pull that, you should see your beads sit next to each other so that you've got those 2 columns next to each other. You have your 1 set of 2 beads and your second set of 2 beads. We're going to pass up through the second little column here, so that second set of 2 beads. And now here's where you want to give a nice tight pull so that you don't have any slack in your thread. and that is the beginning of the brick stitch for this row. Every time we start a new row of brick stitch, we're going to start by picking up 2 sets of 2. After that, we're going to just pick up 1 set of 2. So I'm going to continue here by picking up 1 set of 2 beads, and I'm going to go through the next bridge thread, up through those 2 beads. So I'm going from the bottom out through the top, giving a nice tight pull, and then pick up another 2 beads to continue with my brick stitch. Again, go under that bridge thread, that next bridge thread, pull, and go up through those 2 beads. I'm going to continue this until the end, and then I'm going to flip and start over again. I finished my first row of brick stitch. I started here with a row of ladder stitch, and then I built a row of brick stitch on top of it, and now I'm ready to continue with another row of brick stitch. Just like I started with the last step, I'm going to pick up 4 beads. I need 2 sets of 2. I'm going to skip that first bridge thread, and I'm going to go through the second bridge thread. Pull tight, and I'm going to pass up through the 2 beads in my second column there in from the end. So that is the start there of my second or my third row of beads. It's my ladder stitch, my first row of brick, and then here's my second row of brick. So here's the beginning of my second row of brick. Now I'm ready to continue with the brick just as I would normally, picking up just 2 beads at a time. I'm picking up 2 beads. I'm going under that next bridge thread, giving a good tug, and then going up through those 2 beads. So if you're really familiar with a brick stitch, this is just a simple brick stitch that's been modified so that we pick up 2 beads instead of 1 bead every time. I'm going to go ahead and continue this row, and then I'm going to continue building my rows of brick stitch until I get to the end and I can't add on any more. And when I get to that point, I'm going to show you what that looks like. I've done 6 rows of brick stitch, and here I am at my last row, which will be my 7th row. I have on my last row here that I did, I only had a total of 3 columns or 3 sets of 2 beads. So on my top row here, I'm only going to be able to add that initial set of beads that I pick up at the very beginning of each row. So to do that, I'm going to pick up 2 beads and another 2 beads, skip that first bridge thread and go through the second bridge thread, which is on this top row going to be the last bridge thread, farthest away from where I'm starting. And I'm going to go up through those 2 beads in that second column or that second set of 2. If I can get it through at that angle, there we go. And so now my last row is a set of just 2 columns. So I have 1 column and a second. I don't have anything in the center there. It's just a pair of columns. And at this point, I'm going to stop for now, and I'm going to go ahead and do my second triangle just like this one, and I'm going to keep all of my thread attached so that I can attach it to the second triangle that's going to go on the bottom in my second colorway. I have here my first diamond, which I made with this lovely iris blue color, and then my second diamond I made here with a wheat colored fun like golden mix. So for each one of these shapes, and each one of these colors, you want to have 2 of each because you're going to be making earrings, so of course you want to double everything that you're doing. So the first step would be making 2 of this color, and then the second step is going to be following the same instructions for this color here, and just do it in whatever secondary color you want. So you're going to have 2 of this and 2 of this. Once you've got that together, we're going to take our pieces here, put them together, and create a diamond out of them. Now I already have my thread and needle attached here, and I have it attached to this lovely golden wheat color. So what I'm going to do here is, coming out of the top of one of my 11-ohs, I'm going to go down through all the beads on the outside of that one edge. So just push your needle through all of the outside beads along that one edge. And if you don't get it through all at once, that's fine. Go through some of them, pick up your needle, and keep going. I want to align the edges here, so my wide edges where I started with my ladder stitch, I'm going to align them so that they match up, and you should have 2 identical sets of diamonds here, each one of them with 9 little columns here at the bottom. So you should have each one of those columns line up exactly. I'm coming out here of my first column, and so I'm going to go through the first column of my blue piece here on the other side and join those. And then I'm going to go down through the second column and across to my golden triangle, and through the 2 beads of the second column on that side. So this is similar also to a ladder stitch technique. I'm really just going back and forth, connecting all of those columns, all of those beads together. I'm going to move on to that third column and go through the third column here on each side of my diamonds. So a total of 4 beads. And I'm going to go over, I think this is now my 5th column, through all 4 beads there. And in this fashion, I'm just sewing up that seam. So once I get to the end here, I'm just going to go ahead and finish this and tie off my thread. After attaching both sides of the triangle together, you're going to end up with a diamond shape like this. And if you've got these extra wires hanging out, that's fine. This is exactly what your piece should look like. I'm going to work on adding now my ear wire at the top, and I'm going to put a little bead embellishment at the other side, or on the other end on the bottom. Using the thread and needle that I already have here that I'm already working with, and this is the same needle and thread that I used to seam up the 2 halves together. I'm going to take this needle and thread, and I'm going to follow my thread path and go through all my beads until I come out through the top. And let me show you exactly how I'm going to do that. So my needle and thread here is coming out of this last little column of beads, my set of 2, and it's coming out of my blue beads here facing me, coming out towards me. So I'm going to go up through the second set and through the second set on my golden side here. So I'm passing up through 4 beads. At this point, I meet up with all of those beads that are on the outside of the triangle, and I can just go ahead and start passing through those beads. So this is the same thing we did before, just following the line of beads one after the other on the outside. At the top here, you can use your needle and thread, and if you want to make this a little bit more obvious here, kind of push the two sides apart. We have 2 sets of 2 beads here. That was our very last row of Burke stitch. So I have 2 beads here, and then I have another column, another set of 2 beads right next to that. So I want my thread and needle to be coming out the top of that first set of 2 beads. So coming right out the top of my project. I'm going to pick up my wire guard and go through one side of my wire guard and down through the other side of my wire guard. And as you do this, you just want to make sure that your thread catches in that channel between each side of the wire guard. I'm going to go down through the second set of beads, my second set of 2 beads, that's at the very top, and that makes up that last row of my Burke stitch. And now I'm going to go up through the first set of beads, again at the very top, making up that top row of my Burke stitch. And I'm going to go through this wire protector again. So when you go through the wire protectors, you're going through just the little canals or channels at the very base on either side. It's sort of like the very end of the rainbow. The very end of the rainbow has that little channel or pot of gold that you have to go through. And again on the other side here, and as I'm passing through that channel, I can pass through the 2 beads below it. Pull my thread and just make sure that my thread is falling in that channel there. And that's essentially all I need to do to add my wire guard. I can now take my thread through the project, and I like to just travel along the edge and do a little underhand knot. Make sure you get that knot between the beads and not over the beads. That can be a little tricky. It can be a little tricky to see too if you do it. And I always like to do a couple little knots in the project. And then I can thread burn. I can thread burn this off. So that is how I am attaching my ear wire. I have that little loop there up there, my wire guard, and then I'll come back and add my ear wire once I'm done. So the next thing I want to do, now that I've got this side finished, is I want to finish the bottom side, which I have this lovely blue iris color. I have thread already attached here, so all I need to do is add a needle onto the thread that I already have. So you just want to make sure you have a nice clean cut, which I don't have. It looks like I don't have a nice clean cut, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that again. And I'm going to use a pair of pliers here, the flat nose ones, flat or needle nose, to get that thread nice and flat at the end. And then I should be making it a lot easier for myself that way to get that through my needle. So my thread here, let me move this guy out of the way. My thread here is in the same situation that I was when I started putting my wire guard on up here. I'm coming out through one of the sets of 2 beads that was in that last row of Burke stitch. Now you can do a number of different things to embellish at the end. You don't even have to embellish if you like it the way that it is. you can stop right here, tie off your threads, and you're good to go. But I found this lovely bead that is a topaz with this sort of blue flare to it. And I thought this was a perfect way to bring together both halves of my piece. So I'm going to pick up my bead here, and then I want to use something like a little stop bead. Just pick up one 11-0, and I'm not going to go back through this 11-0. I'm just going to go back through the larger bead here. And as I go through the larger bead, I'm going to take note of which set of 2 beads my thread was coming out of, and I'm going to go through the next set. So this is very similar to how we added the wire guard. And I'm going to go through that first set of 2 beads. I'm going to reinforce this by going back down through my larger bead, through the 11-0. So we're just going through that 11-0 once, and then back down through my larger bead, and through my set of 2 beads, my set of 2 seed beads in that last column of brick stitch. So now I have on here a secure bead here to kind of anchor it, to give some weight to it so that as it's hanging off your ear, it really kind of gives it some weight and pulls it down. I think this is really lovely, and I love that I was able to find a bead that went so well with my color choices for my seed beads. So now all I have to do is just tie off my threads. I have these couple little guys here, my little tail threads that I can cut off, as well as this one that I'm using. So I'm going to cut those 3 threads off, and I'm going to add my ear wire, and then I will be done. So just in case you are not familiar with how to add an ear wire, your ear wire is going to look something like this. And all you have to do is grip the little piece here on the very outside. There's sometimes a little ball sitting on top, and you just pull it towards you. You're going to simply hook on your earring and then close it back up. And there you have it. Last thing for me to do here is I'm going to go ahead and take care of my threads, get those tied off and burned down, and then I will have a lovely pair of earrings. If you enjoyed this video, please comment below and let us know your thoughts. You can also subscribe to our channel to be notified as soon as we have more beading tutorials out that you will enjoy probably just as much as you enjoyed this one.